It's the Brad Field Weather Podcast, underwritten by Action Carpet and Floor Covering, Hot Meadow Street in Simsbury. I am Dan Lovallo. He is meteorologist Brad Field. And Brad, here we are putting this podcast together on September 3rd, and the meteorological summer is over. How about that?
Well, it was a hot and it was a dry one, Dan. I mean, all sorts of warmth this summer. We set the all-time record for days at or above the 90-degree mark. As you know, we said that there were 38 such days back in 1983 where the temperature got to 90 or higher during the warm season months. This year, we got to 39 days with a temperature at or over 90 degrees. I'm not saying that we're not going to have any more 90-degree days, but as I look forward, Dan, just kind of giving you a little preview of the crystal ball segment, it looks normal to maybe even trending slightly cooler than normal as we go through the middle and later portions of September. So there's nothing glaring in front of me here that says it's going to be 90 degrees again. So by the time the weather pattern changes and it may be possible for it to get really warm, it may be too late in the season. So, but in any case, the meteorological summer, the months of June, July, and August were hot. Every single month running above average as far as temperatures are concerned, and every single month running well below average in terms of precipitation, and the moderate drought conditions still persist, especially in northern parts of Connecticut.
I know, Brad, we've talked about this before, but there may be people listening to the podcast for the first time. Why is there this meteorological calendar, and then we have the standard calendar where fall won't begin until the third week of September?
I think it's just so it's out of convenience, I think, Dan. I'm not actually positive why they do it, but you have the finite months. For example, June, July, and August are classified as meteorological summer. September, October, November classified as meteorological autumn. Then, of course, December, January, and February are classified as meteorological winter. And then what's left? March, April, and May are meteorological spring. I think it's done out of convenience, the fact that you can look at a whole month instead of averaging. For example, astronomical autumn begins on September 22nd this year. So you'd have to do the calculations based on June 22nd or 21st, whatever was the start of astronomical summer, all the way to September 22nd. So I think it's just for ease of calculation and so forth why it's done that way. But meteorological summer is over. We're going into the meteorological fall. As I said, astronomical fall arrives on September 22nd, where the sun's rays are direct over the equator. And from that point forward, further and further south in the sky, lower and lower sun angle. That means less heating of the ground. That means colder temperatures. So here we go.
Well, there is no denying since the start of summer we have lost 2 hours and 9 minutes of daylight as of this recording. So that has a tremendous effect on the weather, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And also, Dan, listen to this. I did some research this morning. September 1st, sunrise was at 6:17 a.m. and sunset was at 7:23. Now, that sunset, fast forward to September 30th, is 6:33. So we not only the 2 hours plus that you just mentioned, but in this month ahead, we lose an additional 50 minutes on the back end of the day from 7:23 on September 1st to 6:33 on September 30th. But we lose over a half an hour at the front end of the day, too. By September 30th, the sunrise is 6:48, as opposed to starting the month off at 6:17. So we lose 50 minutes on the back end of the day and 31 minutes on the front end of the day. So the days are contracting. The sun's angle in the sky is getting lower. And as I said, less heating of the ground surfaces and so forth. So, you know what's coming. You know what's coming as soon as we get through this autumn. And I'll tell you what, odds are that we are not going to have relatively snowless winters back to back.
Curiously, as we talk, and we'll get to that about the winters and the almanacs and everything in just a bit, but curiously, at this time, as we're losing more daylight in September, particularly with the ocean waters especially being warm, we are at the height of the hurricane season, aren't we?
Right. As a matter of fact, next week is the climatological height of the hurricane season. It's pretty busy in the tropics, Dan, right now, but there's really nothing imminent or threatening to the United States. We have Nana, which is weakening over Belize right now, that came in down there. Omar is a depression kind of moving harmlessly through the North Atlantic. And I noticed a few waves coming off of Africa this morning. The second wave, the National Hurricane Center thinks is going to form into a tropical depression early next week when it reaches more favorable environment over the central Atlantic. So if that system does earn a name, the next named storm would be Paulette. So that's nothing imminent, but something to keep in the back of your mind. Next week you may start hearing about Paulette, and right smack dab at the time of peak hurricane activity.
I want to take a moment to talk about Action Carpet and Floor Covering, located on Hot Meadow Street in Simsbury, underwriting our Bradfield Weather Podcast. Action Carpet and Floor Covering, voted, by the way, first runner-up in the Best of Hartford Magazine 2019. Action Carpet and Floor Covering specializes in carpet, area rugs, runners, tile, vinyl. Action Carpet and Floor Covering is your place for laminate, engineered and solid wood, sanding and refinishing, radiant heating systems, mold and mildew remediation, water damage repair, professional installation, and professional cleaning services. You know, since 1993, Action Carpet and Floor Covering has served both residential and commercial customers throughout Connecticut and beyond. No job is too small. Action Carpet and Floor Covering values all of its customers regardless of the size of the project. By the way, Action Carpet and Floor Covering is a full-service, family-run floor company offering everything from brand-name floor covering products to professional installation and cleaning services. Call Action Carpet and Floor Covering today, 860-651-8406. 860-651-8406, or go online, action-carpet.com. That's action-carpet.com. And once again, Brad and I thank Action Carpet and Floor Covering of Hot Meadow Street in Simsbury for underwriting the Bradfield Weather Podcast. Now, what does it look like? I mean, and we've got all these spaghetti models that are out there, but any chance down the road we may get something before this season comes to an end?
Yeah, Dan, I was thinking that this morning, again, when I was working on the Crystal Ball long-range segment. We have a setup in the weather pattern, the steering winds, of a ridge on the Pacific coast, a trough in the middle of the country, and a ridge off the eastern seaboard of the United States. So translating that into layman's language, a Bermuda high. So the situation there is if a system can get under there, get under the high, like come through the Caribbean and into the Bahamas, it's then pulled straight north up the eastern seaboard. So yeah, that is absolutely something we're going to have to be wary of during the next few weeks. But Paulette is in Paulette hasn't even formed yet. But the wave that may become Paulette is in a position where kind of makes you take notice when systems come off the Cape Verde Islands and move across the central Atlantic and so forth, and they come into this ridge pattern over the United States. You got to kind of keep your guard up on the east coast of the United States. So the answer to your question is yes. We have to be on the lookout.
We'll get to our On the Weather Map and Crystal Ball segments in just a bit, but last week on the podcast we talked about the old Farmers Almanac prediction for winter, and they had it being a mild winter again in our neck of the woods, the Northeast. But then the Farmers Almanac came out with its prediction, and to begin with, it's confusing because there are two almanacs, the old Farmers Almanac and the Farmers Almanac, right?
Right. The old Farmers Almanac was founded in 1792 in New Hampshire. And then there's another magazine, I don't think it's quite as famous as the old Farmers Almanac, but it's just called the Farmers Almanac. That was founded in the state of Maine 202 years ago, so we're talking 1818. So the Farmers Almanac went into existence in 1818. That's out of Maine. And the old Farmers Almanac, 1792, and that's based out of New Hampshire. So they're always interesting reading, and I've admitted before, and I'll freely admit again, as soon as they come out, I want to see what their winter prediction is for New England.
So there's a battle going on between the two this time, isn't there?
Well, the old Farmer's Almanac, it's a little confusing because they are predicting, as you said, Dan, milder weather. But, if we have temperatures above average in the wintertime, say instead of a daytime high temperature reading of 28, say we're 5 degrees above that and a daytime high temperature averaging of 33 or something, it can obviously still snow. So the old Farmer's Almanac says as their headline, now this is the one out of New Hampshire, it's snow time. It said, get excited, folks in the Northeast. Snow lovers should be very excited. So despite the fact that they are predicting above average temperature, they are also predicting a snowy winter for us here in the northeast part of the United States. When they give a blanket prediction, they're giving it for the entire country. So when they say, it looks like a mild winter overall and a fairly snowless winter, maybe it is in 90% of the country, but they are specifically saying it's snow time for us here in the Northeast. The Farmer's Almanac, the one out of Maine, a direct quote from them is, quote, remember last year's snow-free winter in the Northeast, unquote. And then I quote them again, excuse me, well, this year our prediction is very different, with the possibility of a blizzard hitting the Mid-Atlantic and New England during the second week of February. So they're very specific there, the second week of February. And they're also predicting a big storm for the final week of March that they think will be snow in New England as well, and kind of a punctuation and an exclamation point to a very snowy winter in the Northeast. So a snow lover like me, I'm very happy to read these predictions. I did a little research this morning on what the ENSO state is. Again, that's the El Nino Southern Oscillation, Dan. That's in the tropical waters of the Pacific. And the NOAA, National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Administration, is predicting a 60% chance of La Nina development in the Northern Hemisphere during the fall and extending into the winter. Right now, temperatures in the tropical Pacific are what we call ENSO neutral. They're just about average. They're just about where they're supposed to be. But they're forecasting cooler waters to develop in that area, and that would give rise to a La Nina winter in the Northern Hemisphere, which is entirely different. It's exactly opposite of an El Nino winter. When we have an El Nino winter in New England, that is bad if you like snow. The ski areas do not want to hear about an El Nino winter. If we have a strong El Nino, we will get all sorts of storms slamming into the Pacific coast and sort of moving across the country as rainmakers. Our upper level flow tends to be from the southwest, and you can't get warm when your upper level flow is coming from Texas and Mexico. So that's kind of bad if you see an El Nino developing. So that, in all likelihood, is the least likely of what we're going to be having this upcoming winter, with either an ENSO neutral situation in the tropical Pacific or a La Nina situation setting up. So I obviously will examine this more closely as we get closer to making those wintertime predictions. And it's kind of a fun thing to do, and I enjoy dabbling in it. Last year's prediction, I have to be honest, it was not one of my better predictions. The winter started off very, very strong, as you recall, Dan. Before Christmas, we had several big snowstorms right in the first couple of weeks of December, and then it kind of went dark. Nothing really happened for months, and then toward the end of the winter, we had a little more snow once again, but we really shut down on getting a storm track in January and February, which is really when you want to lock into a good storm track, have storms coming up the coast, if you're a snow lover.
So here we are again on September 3rd, going into the Labor Day weekend, and Labor Day is late this year. But that said, let's take a look at what's on the weather map. What do things look like?
Well, on the weather map, Dan, it's actually pretty boring for me, which is pretty nice for everybody else. What we've got is a kind of a humid day out there today, and temperatures are going to be up into the 80s. So for the kids in school already and, having to wear their masks in school all day, it's going to be kind of an uncomfortable day. But we do see drier air in the form of a cold front right now. It's coming across the Great Lakes. By this evening, that cold front should be passing Detroit and coming up on western New York State. Now, that cold front could trigger a shower, maybe a rumble of thunder for us here overnight tonight. By daybreak, the front is essentially going to be right over us in western and central Connecticut. And then by Friday evening, the cold front will be off Cape Cod. So that sets us up for a really nice holiday weekend. So Friday, the front's going by. We get rapid clearing, lowering humidity. The sun's out. Saturday, that high is strung out from Minnesota to West Virginia. So virtually the eastern two-thirds of the United States are really nice weather. Sunday, the high is right on the West Virginia border. So just, again, a sparkling day up here in Connecticut. The high moves from Nova Scotia, kind of ridging back to the Appalachians. So we start getting into a little bit of a milder flow on Labor Day. But again, the sun is shining. The high pressure is still strung out from Nova Scotia to Virginia on Tuesday. And then off the New England coast on Wednesday to Virginia and North Carolina. We've got another cold front that'll be approaching New York and Pennsylvania by a week from today, next Thursday. But, Dan, the long and short of it is, once this front goes by overnight tonight, the humidity goes down, sprawling high pressure builds in, and I think it's sunny for days on end here with comfortable temperatures and low humidity.
Oh, that's a terrific forecast, to say the least. But now look into your crystal ball. As you mentioned, we have begun the meteorological autumn season. That started on September 1st. What does the crystal ball look like?
Well, it looks like we've got a ridge-trough ridge. I kind of teased that a little bit in the section when you asked me about the East Coast and hurricane potential. But we do have that ridge in the west, trough in the center of the country, and a ridge off the eastern seaboard of the United States. So we start in the middle of next week. Let's start with September 9th and move through next weekend, which would be the weekend after Labor Day, the weekend of September 12th and September 13th. It looks like above average here, temperature-wise, as we're sort of on the back side of that ridge that's offshore. So it's a little bit on the mild side here. And I wanted to tell you what those normals are. So September 1st, Dan, the normal high in Connecticut is 80. But by September 30th, the normal high at Bradley International Airport is 69. So the temperature drops 11 degrees with respect to what's normal as we go through this month alone. So, it goes down almost a half a degree every day. And same thing with the nightly low temperature. September 1st, the average nightly low is 58. But by the end of the month, the average nightly low is 47. And the other thing I wanted to point out about September is that astronomical autumn arrives on Tuesday, September 22nd. So it looks like definitely a cooling trend as the sun's angle lowers and we keep losing that daylight.
Wow. Well, there's no arguing with Mother Nature. I mean, the calendar changes every day, right?
Yeah, back to the crystal ball, as you asked me about, when we start in the middle of next week and go through next weekend, the 12th and 13th, looks like, as I said, a little above average here temperature-wise, but also precipitation-wise, and that's good news because, let's face it, Friday, I'm predicting rain-free. Saturday, rain-free. Sunday, rain-free. Labor Day, Monday, rain-free. Tuesday and Wednesday, I don't think it's going to rain. So by the time late next week and next weekend roll around, we could use the rain, and it does look like the core of the above-normal precipitation will be from the Ohio Valley across New York and into New England. So it looks like we'll get some beneficial rain out of this pattern setup as well. The well below normal temperatures, and we're starting to see that, Dan. During the summer, obviously, with the jet way up in Canada, there wasn't much cold air in the continental, the lower 48. But now we're starting to see it show up. The middle of next week through next weekend looks way below normal in Minnesota, South Dakota, Nebraska, Kansas. They're under that trough with above normal temperatures on the West Coast and just barely hanging on to above normal temperatures on the East Coast. The week beginning September 14th and also then the week beginning September 21st, it looks like that ridge is going to be expanding and building in the West. And if we can get a situation to set up like that, we usually look at good winters in terms of snow in the Northeast because you get a big ridge that sprawls up through Western Canada so we can grab onto some cold air near the North Pole and then yank it down through central Canada and into the Great Lakes region. So it looks like that big ridge is going to start developing toward the end of September in the west with the trough sliding east. So what's going to try to keep us warm here is a ridge over Florida, but I think that ridge is going to get kind of smushed down to the southeast. So it does look like we will be seeing more, I would say, normal conditions in that, third and last week of September, with the daily high maybe making the low 70s, the nightly low around 50 degrees. So let's say even though the next few days will be slightly above normal as far as temperature goes, say for the next week or so, I think beyond that we start cooling to normal temperatures as we head through the mid and later portions of the month.
So let me ask you this before we wrap up the podcast. Can a hurricane or tropical storm coming up in our neck of the woods throw off this so-called equilibrium of the season?
Yes, absolutely. The hurricanes and tropical systems, Dan, are kind of like heat distributors. For example, the storm is a warm core storm that forms near the equator or north of the equator. But then as the storms move north up into the North Atlantic and so forth, even up to like Iceland and Greenland sometimes or whatever, they are transferring heat northward. And as they're moving with their winds, if it's a hurricane, they're over 74 miles per hour. If it's a major hurricane, they're over 111 miles per hour. You get massive waves. You get massive upwelling. So then all of a sudden, you might ask, well, what's going to happen in the tropical Pacific to make it a La Nina? If the temperatures are normal right now, what's going to happen? Well, there's a flow pattern and currents going on in the oceans as well. So we've got jet streams blowing above the earth. We've got currents and thermal patterns going on in the oceans. So any redistribution of the heat or whatever, you get a few typhoons running across the parts of the Pacific, upwelling the water, bringing the colder water that's down below up to the surface. All of these factors absolutely throw off that equilibrium that you were talking about.
Okay. Well, then, as we put a wrap on things going into the Labor Day weekend, Brad, what does our weather look like?
Dan, it's an honor to give this forecast because it's so nice. For the rest of today, which is Thursday, September 3rd, mixed clouds and sun, and it's moderately humid out there, and temperatures are going to reach well up into the 80s. I'd say 85, 86, something like that. So a fairly uncomfortable day for the kids in school if there is no air conditioning at the school. Overnight, there's the chance of a passing shower. That's that cold front coming, temperatures in the 60s. For Friday, sunshine will either be here first thing in the morning or will come out by 9 or 10 o'clock, and much, much lower humidity. Temperatures for Friday, 78 to 84, but it will feel delightful with the low humidity. 50s for Friday night. Saturday is sunny, warm, and dry. Temperatures 74, 75, 76, something like that, right in the mid-70s. Sunday, mostly sunny. I'm predicting a high of 76 to 82. Labor Day, mostly sunny, 76 to 82. And Tuesday and Wednesday of next week, Dan, no weather problems at all. Looks like mainly sunshine and the high temperature between 80 and 85. So that is a nice forecast.
That's a winner for sure. And, Brad, to all our first responders out there, we always thank them. They're on the front lines every day, and particularly during our pandemic, a big thank you to all our first responders and to our podcast audience and to you, Sandy, and your family. Have a great Labor Day weekend.
That's right, Dan. All the best to the first responders. All the best to our listeners. You and Susan have yourself a fantastic weekend, and thank you very much.
Thanks. The Brad Field Weather Podcast, underwritten by Action Carpet and Floor Covering, Hot Meadow Street in Simsbury.